Hello everyone, so today we're going to be talking about the case of Aurore the Martyre child. I am going to put a trigger warning here because this case does discuss child physical abuse, so if that's something that triggers you, I would advise you to go watch another video. Because this case happened such a long time ago, it happened about 100 years ago, some information might be incomplete. It was also hard sometimes to figure out which information was correct because the information would vary from website to website. I also had to translate a lot of the information that I found from French Canadian to English, and sometimes the information was in an old French Canadian dialect, which made it harder for me because I didn't always understand that dialect from that time. Even though this case happened such a long time ago, it is still a very well-known case here in Quebec, and the name Aurore the Martyre child is often used to describe a child that is not well treated. Aurore Gagnon was born on May 31st, 1909, in a small town called Saint-Philomène-de-Fortierville in Quebec, Canada. It's interesting to note the history behind the town's name, because Saint-Philomène was also a child when she died. She was born in Greece around the year 291, but she, like a lot of people at the time, was brought to Italy to be a slave. An emperor caught her eye, but she refused all of his advances and all of his marriage proposals because she was a Christian and he was not. So I am editing this right now and I'm realizing that I explained this very wrong. So basically, it's not the emperor that caught her eye, it's the other way around. So she caught his eye. I just wanted to clarify that. At 13, she died after being physically abused by the emperor because he thought that if he hurt her, she would eventually accept his advances, which she did not. So basically the town was named after a young girl that was abused just like Aurore. There's only one confirmed picture of Aurore and she appears to be really young. There is another picture that is suspected to be of Aurore and she looks to be about 5 or 6 years old. Aurore was born to her father Télésphore Gagnon and her mother Marianne Caron. Her parents married in 1906. Aurore was their second child out of the 4 that they would eventually have. They had Marie-Jeanne in 1907, Aurore in 1909, then in 1910 they had a little boy named George, then in 1915, 5 years later, they had another boy named Joseph. A little after giving birth to Joseph, Marianne was diagnosed with tuberculosis. Télésphore was now unable to take care of his house, his children, and the farm that he had. So in 1916, the widow of his cousin, also named Marianne, but I will call her Mary from now on, moved in with her 2 kids in the Gagnon family house. Mary, born Marianne Hood, was born on April 21st, 1890 in Saint-Sophie-de-l'Évrard. She first got married to Napoleon Gagnon, who was Télésphore cousin, like I mentioned before. She went on to have 6 children with Napoleon, but a lot of them died really young. It wasn't abnormal for children to die really young at the time because the winter here can be really cold and the hygiene at the time wasn't what it is today, and for many other reasons. From what I could find from the Quebec registries, 2 of her children died at the age of 1, and in the most recent movie that was made about the case, it said that 4 of Mary's children had died. Right when Mary moved in with her 2 sons, weird things started happening. In 1917, Joseph, who was only 2 at the time, was found dead under a mattress because he had suffocated. However, the coroner deemed it to be a natural death. In January of 1918, Marianne, Aurore's mother, died of tuberculosis. And because Télésphore was unable to manage his family on his own, he married Mary only 1 week after Marianne died. Then, for about 1.5 years, to give Télésphore some rest, the kids went to live with their grandparents, so their mother's parents, and they came back to live with their father and Mary in the summer of 1919. When the kids came back to live with their father and Mary, that's when the abuse towards Aurore started. We will discuss the nature of the abuse later in the video, but eventually on February 12th, 1920, a doctor was called to the Gagnon family home because Aurore was in a coma. Aurore died on that same day when she was only 10 years old, and her cause of death was deemed to be blood poisoning, which occurs when an infection reaches the bloodstream. And it's not surprising that she had an infection considering what I'm about to say. When the doctor got to the house, he noticed a lot of injuries on Aurore. So he asked the coroner to look at Aurore's body, and he found 54 injuries on Aurore's body. On her fingers and her wrists, the skin was peeled to the bone. She had inflammation on her left thigh. She had a really bad injury on her head, so her hair was covered with blood and pus. Her stomach was burnt because she was forced to swallow so much soap, and Aurore was clearly malnourished. Hearing all of this makes me really angry, and that's not even all the description of the abuse that she had to suffer. I wanted to rewatch the movie for this video, and when I knew the abuse was about to start, I couldn't even watch the movie. I've already watched it once a few years ago, but I couldn't even watch it again. The funeral was held 2 days later on February 14th, and when everyone came out of the church, that's when the police arrested Télésphore and Mary for Aurore's death. The trial for Mary started on April 13th and lasted 8 days. When the trial started, it attracted so many people that they had to put a limit on how many people could get in the room where the trial was taking place. This case was so popular that it inspired 2 plays, one in 1921 and one in 2004, and 2 movies. One of the movies came out in 1952, and it was the first sold-out movie in Quebec. Aurore's father tried to prevent the movie from coming out, but that was dismissed because at the beginning of the movie it says that if there's any resemblance with reality, that's just coincidence, even though the movie is literally called Aurore The Martyre Child, but anyways. The other movie came out in 2005 and made record profit in Quebec its first weekend out. The case also inspired many novels. A few of Aurore's siblings and step-siblings testified during the trials, and they confirmed the horrible abuse that Aurore was going through. Marie-Jeanne, Aurore's sister, who was 13 at the time, said that when Mary and Télésphore married at first, everything was okay. But apparently during the summer of 1919, Aurore went to the hospital, and when she came back, that's when things got bad. Her sister Marie-Jeanne said that 2 days before Aurore died, she knew that her sister was going to pass away. When she got asked if she told her father that she thought Aurore was going to die, she said no, but she said that she did tell Mary, and Mary responded with, "I will be better off without her. I will think I'm in heaven." She said that Aurore was an obedient child and that Mary was trying to make it seem like she wasn't. She was hiding money in Aurore's things to make it seem like she was a thief. Mary also put dirt on Télésphore clothes and blamed it on Aurore, who got beaten by her father for it. Mary also hid Aurore's shoes, which forced her to go outside barefoot, and she got beaten by her father for that as well. Mary even forced Aurore to eat the content of a night vase, which is basically a toilet, and you guessed it, Aurore got beaten for that as well. Marie-Jeanne said that she heard her father tell another man that he beat Aurore more than his own horse. She also said that unless Marie would tell Télésphore that Aurore had done something bad, he wouldn't beat Aurore. He hadn't beaten Marie-Jeanne in 2 years. Marie-Jeanne said that Aurore hurt her eye by falling on the stove one day, and Mary healed it with a washcloth soaked in boiled milk and with bread, but right after she threw a piece of wood at Aurore and hurt the other eye. Marie-Jeanne also said that Mary would use a fireplace poker to burn Aurore's skin, and that was also confirmed by the other siblings. When Marie-Jeanne was asked why she never said anything about Aurore's abuse, she said that Mary threatened her and her other siblings that if they said anything, she would tell Télésphore and Télésphore would beat them. Apparently, the neighbors sort of knew what was going on, but they also never said anything. George, Aurore's 7-year-old stepbrother, said that he saw Télésphore beat Aurore with a whip that he used for his horses. Gérard, Aurore's 9-year-old stepbrother, said that the summer before Aurore died, he saw Télésphore beat her with an axe handle. When Gérard was shown the axe handle in court, he said that it was much shorter than he remembers it to be because Télésphore had cut it to make it seem less harmful. Gérard also confirmed George's story about the horsewhip, and even said that Télésphore would sometimes tie Aurore's hands behind her back before whipping her. Télésfore's niece spent a week with the Gagnon family during the summer of 1919, and she said that she saw Mary beat Aurore multiple times. Another man said that he noticed an injury on Aurore's foot. The man asked the parents what happened, and they said that a kid had thrown a rock on her foot. Mary was pregnant at the time of the trial with twins, and the defense tried to argue that because of her situation, she couldn't be found guilty because of mental alienation. Out of the 8 doctors that examined Mary, only 2 of them said that she wasn't responsible for what she did because of her mental situation. On April 21st, Mary was sentenced to the death penalty, which was supposed to occur on October 1st at 8 a.m. sharp. But on September 29th, 1920, her sentence was changed for life in prison because on July 8th, she had given birth to her twins, a boy and a girl. Télésphore trial went from April 23rd to April 28th. On May 4th, he was sentenced to life in prison for involuntary manslaughter. But he was released only 5 years later because of good conduct. After that, he went back to Fortierville and he remarried for the 3rd time, and he died in 1961. Mary got out on July 3rd, 1935, but she died not even a year later on May 12th, 1936 of cancer. Aurore's sister Marie-Jeanne died in 1986 at the age of 79. During her life, she studied nursing and eventually married and had 8 kids. It's unknown why Mary specifically targeted Aurore, but some sources suggest that there was a rivalry between Aurore and Mary's son Gérard, because they were about the same age, and maybe Mary wanted to defend her son or side with him. The most recent movie about the case, the one that came out in 2005, suggests that maybe it was because Aurore looked a lot like her mother and Mary was really angry about that.
Regarde-moi là-dedans, toi. Elle est aussi belle que sa mère.
Ça te fait un compliment, tu vas dire merci.
Merci.
I also saw some sources that said that Aurore was the only child that refused to call Mary mom, which could have made her angry.
Tu commenceras pas à me répondre, jeune fille. Tu dois respecter à ta mère, t'as pas appris ça?
Ma mère est morte.
But we still don't know to this day the exact reason why Mary was so abusive towards Aurore. But this is it for today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video.